improvisational format in Arabic music, which is called taqsim.
What's it called? Can you say that again?
Taqsim.
Taqsim. Okay.
In Arabic, Taqsim. In Turkish, taqsim with a K.
Okay.
It's just an improvisation on a mode. So when I play.
And when do people use that? When do people play like that?
It's pretty standard. It's a nice way to open. Because in Arabic music, in traditional Arabic music, you have these suites called wasla, and it could be whatever, usually 3 to 8 to 12 songs.
8 to 12 songs together is like a suite.
The older suites are long; they're 45 minutes to an hour and a half. But nowadays, people don't do that much, and there's shorter suites. The traditional ways that you have usually improvisation at the beginning on the mode. The suite will all be in one maqam, which is the mode.
Yeah. And how would you describe the mode? Then what do you mean by that?
The mode, the maqam is the melodic scaffolding that you're using.
Like a theme.
It's not a theme. It's 2 different tetrachords. So there's the lower part of it, the first 4 notes, and then the upper part, the upper 4 notes.
Okay.
And so I think I was doing either upper 4 were, and then the lower 4 and the higher 4 I think were, and then I would switch them around. That's how you wind it instead of winding it.
Or is it something that you invent when you start to play?
Well, there are things that make more sense than others because they're in famous songs, or because when you hear the tradition, you hear people doing it. But also, the more you learn, the more you feel confident to do what your ear tells you.
Yeah.
And if you've been educating your ear, then what you do is going to be it's going to make sense.
Yeah.
And it might even be directly from tradition. You stop keeping track at some point.
So you have this maqam, you call it?
Yeah.
And then you start to improvise on the maqam?
On the maqam. So usually you'll start the wasla, the set, with an improvisation, because the whole wasla is in that maqam. Same. And then usually you'll start with exploring it a little bit, but usually you want to establish the tonality. Like if this is the note.
Okay, so you work around that basic note.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And then slowly you can start to either insert changes in some of the notes. So I can start going. So I've changed this note. But in Arabic music, it's going to be a quarter tone.
Yeah, because you don't have your buzuq or your oud with you here, and you have to do with my guitar.
Yeah.
So I assume you can't do on my guitar.
I can do it, but it's not going to be as accurate. Like the.
You were saying something about you have these stops in the music. And then it's like putting a period at the end of a sentence, and then you can start again. Can you explain a little bit more about that or give an example?
Yeah, well, I just played that thing.
Yeah.
So now I just made a statement. Now the next one, I can start to introduce things. And then one thing that I do, in the way I like to improvise, is that kind of the next phrase or paragraph will be working through the implications or the consequences of this new thing within the larger context. So I can work with it. You see? Because it's down here, it's up here, and then you can start to think, well, what's the consequence of that? You know, that's another consequence of that.
Oh, wow. And also, I heard when you make like this break, it lasts for Dutch ears or Western ears. It seems pretty long, the break.
Yeah.
So I imagine that if you're with a Western audience, people would start to applaud even that long. And
it
so,
depends.
Yeah, but do you count, like, you know, when you play like jazz or something and you have a break, you on the one or whatever, you start again with the next sentence. How does it work in this music? Or is it just a feeling?
It's a feeling.
Yeah.
So depends how heavy. Before into the break, you do a thing called a kafla.
Mm-hmm.
Kafla is like a lock.
Mm-hmm.
So it depends how heavy the kafla was. Like, so if I was working with this idea and I'd spread it, and I was doing more and more.
Yeah.
The more complicated it is, the more complicated it is to do a kafla or to come back to the original mode and do a kafla there. There's an art to that. Because if you go too far in, then you're in another part of the maqam, and then you should start exploring there.
Yeah.
But if you do a very heavy, depends how and also how much you capture it in the improvisation. If you really capture a great maqam, then it's natural for everyone to want to take a breath.
Okay.
But you want it to be obvious, and everyone should know that it's a musical resting point.
Yeah.
And so when it works, because it's improvisational art, then everyone knows they should reflect.
And you play together with other musicians in this kind of music?
I'm talking about solo improvisations in this case. These are solo improvisations. You can do this kind of maqam exploration with a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different kind of thing. I'm talking about the non-rhythmic versions.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about that, how that works?
Those are called mawal. And the most famous, the most common mawal is called layali.
Yeah.
And layal means, layl means night. So you take the word layal and you'll improvise within the scale. You'll be using these notes, but you'll be using you do that, and then also other words, Allah
and about the lyrics. So people improvise words, or
no, they usually use the word layali. That's why they're called layali.
They just use one word.
There's this simple tradition of the mawal, and then there's the one where you take a poem, a qasida, and you improvise the melodic structure, but it's that poem.
Wow.
Usually certain singers have a poem that they use a lot, and they know their way around it.
Sounds beautiful to me, yeah. But so also you do it with just one word, like layal.
Layali, yeah.
And what does it mean?
Night.
Oh, it means night, you said so. Yeah.
That's one tradition.
I love it. That's amazing. It's so interesting. So people would improvise just on the word layali.
But then, but all the melodic structure is going to be just like I did on the oud. I was improvising.
Yeah, the singer does that too.
It does that too. You can use all the same notes,
but
all the
just
same
with
stuff.
one word.
Yeah, but layali. So you can go and then you can break it up because there's Arabic has different syllabic.
It's like a lot of words.
Several syllables. You can play with them, and then you can also always refer. There's also other words that you use a lot. Oh and Allah and because of course the muezzin, the azan, sings the call to prayer 5 times a day in the Middle East. Have you heard that?
Sure.
And in general, they're improvising upon that form.
I didn't know that.
So if you listen to that, you can hear they're improvising on the sounds.
And there's different maqam for each time of day.
Well, not in every country, but in some countries.
That is why I don't recognize it, because I've heard it often, and I'm expecting what I heard before, and it's never what I heard before.
Right.
Because improvising, and that layali tradition is coextensive with that, where you can use one word or one poem or one line of a poem and say it and sing it differently depending upon how you improvise. And that's what the great azans are doing. They're improvising on the call to prayer.
Wow. They're improvising on the call to prayer. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So could you give an example? Because, also you told me about singing and answering like 2 people, like you did in the kitchen.
Well, it's not. It's just you need to have an audience. Having an educated audience is, in any musical tradition, is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Arabic tradition, if you hear something that you like, then you tell them, you say it right then. You say something
during the music.
Yeah.
And but you do it in a musical way, isn't it?
Well, you could do music like you just start. You could start cheering, or you could say Allah, or you could, if you hear.
Oh yeah, that's what you did. You said Allah. I remember. Yeah. That's her. This is Noor.
Oh no.
She did that. Can you give an example? Can you do that like you did that?
No, I can't do that. But one thing, if remember I told you that you could introduce new notes.
Yeah.
But if I introduced. For example, and someone in the audience liked it.
Yeah.
And was educated enough to know what I just did.
Yeah.
Then the person might yell out the
Allah.
name of the maqam that I just switched to.
Wow.
But that's becoming increasingly rare due to the level of education.
So the maqams have names, and the names are like Layla, or not? That's not the name of the maqam.
It's a system. There's 50 of them, really.
Wow.
But they're not all used, but probably 15 of them are used very commonly. But if you're a listener, if you've been listening, then you know what they all sound like, and you can respond to the musician, and that helps the musician because then they know they're playing to an audience of listeners, and then they feel encouraged to play, inspired to play more complex things and try to strive for beauty. But if there isn't anyone there, then you tend to unless the musicians, usually your musicians know what's going on.